This is a TX4 London taxi. The LTI TX4 is slowly becoming extinct from London's roads as we're now moving on to electric vehicles. But I started driving in one of these taxis. In today's video, I'm going to share with you the 5 things I miss most about driving this iconic vehicle. So I've come to King's Cross Cabs, just north of King's Cross Station. So we're going to go for a test drive and go down memory lane with a TX4, but oh, really? It's the other taxi YouTube guy. Oh. Hello, Mark.
Hey!
How we doing?
The taxi guy. Hey, great to meet you.
George, fantastic to meet you. So check out Mark's channel, Secrets of London, where he's going to be going into famous owners of this taxi and whether you can get one of these second-hand and how much they'll cost. So one of the big things I miss about this cab, and it's become particularly obvious from driving it, is just how small and nimble it is. It was parked in quite a tight space, but I somehow managed to get it out very easily. I remember when I rented my first TX4, just how big it felt in comparison to most normal cars, and the height of it, it was so imposing when it sat in a parking space. But with compared to the TXE, this cab is so small and nimble. In fact, I remember that when I used to live on Jackson's Lane, there's a really tight width restriction there. And going through that width restriction, I can remember was an absolute breeze in the TX4. I could almost do it blindfolded. Come the second day of me owning a TXE, I thought I was going to have to dump the cab there and have a recovery truck come and get me. It was one of the worst experiences ever. But it really pays dividends when you have a real small and nimble vehicle like this when you're in the London traffic. It's not always perfect being able to overtake cars or if you're stuck in traffic, so these are great for being able to escape and get to where you need to be. The second thing I miss about this taxi is just how solid and robust this vehicle is. Perfect for in London, and you might have cyclists approaching you or people getting in and out the cab, slamming the doors. They just seem to be so well built. And one of the things that also took me by surprise is how well these operate in different conditions. I remember with the Beast from the East snow conditions in 2018, I was driving one of these TX4s, and despite being a very heavy rear-wheel drive vehicle, I found it incredible in the snow, and that's largely due to its very skinny tyres. They cut straight into the snow, and I've never had a vehicle drive just as well as this TX4 in those snowy conditions. When the Beast from the East snowstorm came to London, it paralysed most of the trains and other transport networks, but I managed to go out and earn a few quid, and that's all thanks to the TX4. It was a brilliant machine to drive during those conditions. The third thing I miss about this vehicle is just the repairability of it. It's an old school engine. You could put it into a garage and have it repaired. And it was such a sight to be able to go down to the taxi garage, see these jacked up on a 4-poster, seeing gearboxes being changed, engines rebuilt, oil change, etc. I remember one time I actually ranked up at the British Museum. Now I pulled up, I sat on the rank for a bit, I stopped the engine, I went to go start the engine so I could move the cab up a little bit, and nothing. When I turned the key, there was no click, click, click of the starter motor. There was just absolutely nothing. And I found this so bizarre because nothing had changed. I just parked up on this taxi rank. So I phoned up the garage and I said, look, the cab's not starting. What can you help there? He said, oh, is the starter motor engaged? I said, no. So I was on the phone to the garage and he said, Tom, what you've got to do, look at the battery. You see the red cable? Well, if you follow that red cable as far inside the taxi you can go, give it a wiggle, and then see what happens. So I did that, and it started. I think we're gonna start up this cab, and we're gonna take it for a bit of a test drive. Start her up, Mark. First time. Help if I put it into drive, I guess. Just even that, just putting it in drive. Wow, fantastic. This cab feels so small. That bonnet is like tiny. Look at that. That's tiny. Oh, so nimble. Let's see. I hope no one hails me down. That's gonna be really awkward if someone decides to hail me down. Oh no, who's that? Mark. Hello mate, where do you want to go?
Hey Tom, how are you? You enjoying your trip down memory lane?
This is wicked. Like, it's just so simple. I don't feel like I've got all this stuff going on. I can see the road and...
Do you want a passenger?
Yeah, go on then, hop in. I tell you what, the first thing I've wanted to do is that habitually, when I pick up someone in my taxi in the electric, I turn the radio down so I can hear clearly.
Yeah.
I want to turn down the engine. It's like the engine's making too much noise. I can't hear myself think. But this was it. When I was doing the knowledge and you'd see taxis come past and you could hear that diesel engine, and it's still an iconic sound.
Yeah, absolutely.
You haven't got to look to kind of hear that diesel purring almost. The fourth thing I miss about this taxi is just how raw and manual it is. Now, it's an automatic taxi, but just the tactile features that you have with driving a classic vehicle like this, I miss so much. You know, even as simple as starting the cab. Turning the key and hearing that engine go. Even just something as simple as putting it into drive and that little lurch forwards. You don't get that on the newer vehicles now. The switches for the heating and controls, it's all physical buttons like, you know, rocker switches for the hazard lights. The power steering isn't quite as optimum as it is on a more modern vehicle, but you feel a lot more connected to the wheels of the cab. And even when you accelerate, it's automatic, but you can feel the gearbox doing something. It's not just this SKILLSHARE of a new vehicle. I mean, I love driving the new TXE, but there's just something about the simplicity, the connection with the vehicle and the road that is just diminished with more modern vehicles. And the fifth thing with this taxi is just how badly built they were. Even the newer vehicles, 2015 TX4, still felt like something from the year 2000. They just copied and reused the same design. I've heard of stories where people would buy these cabs from new with an oil leak. And you know, you used to see oil patches over every single rank in London. I remember one of the cabs I rented where the door didn't quite shut properly. So you'd be on the motorway and you'd be getting a wind noise as though the window was open. In fact, I'd go to the car wash in it and I used to have to duck out the way because when they were washing the cab with a pressure washer, if it lined up with the door in a particular way, it would actually squirt through the crack in the door and squirt the inside of my ear. In some ways, they were a lot more solid, you know, this dash, you know, it's an all classic kind of car dash and it's kind of a bit indestructible in a way, but in other ways, so badly built. In most modern cars, to the left of the clutch is a nice ample space for you to put your left leg. So if you're on the motorway, you can stretch out that leg, fine. However, in this cab, someone decided to put a large area where you can't actually put your left leg, meaning that you kind of always have to sit there with your left leg bent. I did used to find a little cheeky way of being able to put my foot behind the brake pedal to stretch out my leg, but it was just such a weird design that someone hadn't really thought about it in terms of the driver. Things like the steering wheel. The steering wheel doesn't actually line up with the seat. It's slightly on the piss. And again, they just had that throughout all the models. That was just the design of taxi. If you was a certain height of driver, I think if you was over 6 foot, you would struggle to fit inside of one of these taxis. But these were quirks and charms that I love about the TX4. It's almost like some of the older cabs of the past that used to have a particular leak that was experienced on all taxis. And some cabbies who've been out for decades will still experience this kind of phantom dripping on their leg, despite the fact they no longer drive a cab that has this quirk. Coming back to this TX4 has really ignited the memories for me of when I first started driving a taxi. With over 5,000 electric TXEs in London, they have now taken the crown of king of the ranks from this iconic TX4. But I'm so proud to have driven this iconic taxi. The TX4 was a little bit rough around the edges, but it was still synonymous with that class and style of London. Almost a perfect metaphor for a vehicle of London. Bit rugged, edgy, but still classy and reliable and can get you wherever you need to go. Thank you once again for watching this video. Do check out Mark's channel, Secrets of London, over here. And a big thanks to George Jackson over at King's Cross Taxis for lending us this beautiful vehicle. It's now up for sale, so if you want to grab it, do get in touch. See you again soon. Bye-bye.